Russia, a polar bear garden, $7.2 million, and 300,000 dead otters. What do all these things have in common? I don't know, because I'm too busy thinking of dead otters. Lock it up, Yates-Orr, lock it up! On March 30th, 1867, Russia sold Alaska to the United States for $7.2 million. But how and why? Well, Russian America, as it was previously called, had belonged to Russia since 1732, when fur trappers had made their way to the cold landscape. After over a century in Russian America, Russia wanted to get rid of the land. Why? Well, the fur trade had taken a hit. See, fur trappers had killed over 300,000 sea otters for their fur, rendering the species almost extinct. Plus, the land was just hard to live on, and they didn't want the UK to get it because that was their enemy, and they knew how close it was to British Columbia, and honestly, they just needed the money. The Crimean War had kind of wiped them out financially, so they put out the feelers to the United States that they wanted to sell. But the US government was a little preoccupied with something called the impending Civil War. The US offered to get it for $5 million, but that was too low for the Russians, so they paused negotiations until after the Union won the war in 1865. In 1867, negotiations started back up with Secretary of State William H. Seward leading the charge. Now, Seward was a big proponent of US expansion, but he faced some backlash from Congress and the people who just viewed Alaska as one big polar bear garden, which honestly kind of sounds awesome. Regardless, the deal was made and the US bought Alaska from Russia for $7.2 million. That is 2 cents an acre. Now, this whole purchase is sometimes referred to as Seward's folly because people think that the masses didn't approve of it. But in actuality, a lot of people approved of the purchase of Alaska, and Seward himself got to have his I told you so moment when gold was discovered 2 years later. So Alaska would become an official territory in 1912 and wouldn't become a state until 1959. Now, Alaska is our biggest state. How big? This big. And don't worry about the sea otters. They struck back and they made a huge comeback. In fact, their population is increasing by 13% every year in Alaska. Look, they're holding hands.